In 1986, the Boston Celtics drafted what scouts called the most complete college basketball player of his generation. 2 nights later, he was dead in a college dorm room. He was 22 years old. He had not played a single second of professional basketball. We're going to talk about the player who could have changed everything. The player Boston was building its next dynasty around. The player Michael Jordan himself said he was watching closely because he knew this kid was coming for him. His name was Len Bias, and his story is the biggest what if in NBA history. Welcome to Good Basketball. Today we're walking through a counterfactual that haunts the league 40 years later. Because Len Bias wasn't just a draft pick, he was the answer to a question Boston had been asking since Larry Bird's back started giving out. He was the heir. He was the bridge. He was supposed to keep the dynasty alive into the 1990s. Instead, he became the most consequential drug death in American history. Not just because of who he was, because of what his death did to the sport, to the city of Boston, and to the entire federal drug policy of the United States. So let's start where every great basketball story starts. With the gym. College Park, Maryland, 1983. Len Bias arrives at the University of Maryland as a 4-star recruit, 6'8", 210 pounds, with the body of a power forward and the touch of a shooting guard. By his sophomore year, the comparisons start. People who watched him said he moved like nobody they had ever seen on a basketball court. He could rise up over a 7-footer and dunk with 2 hands. He could pull up from 20 feet and bury it. He could guard 1 through 4. He was, by every measurable scouting standard, the perfect basketball player. In 1985, he was named the Atlantic Coast Conference Player of the Year. The ACC, at that time, was the toughest college basketball league in America. He did it again the next season, back-to-back. The first Maryland player to ever do that. Scouts at every NBA franchise had the same note in their reports. Len Bias was the closest thing to Michael Jordan that anyone had seen since Michael Jordan. Some thought he was better. Some thought he would be better. Larry Bird himself, watching Bias play in workouts, said this kid is the real deal. The draft was a formality. Everyone knew where he was going. The question was only what number he would be called. June 17th, 1986, New York City, the NBA draft. Just 1 week earlier, the Boston Celtics had finished off the Houston Rockets in 6 games to win their 3rd championship of the decade. Bird had been named Finals MVP. The dynasty looked unbreakable. But behind the scenes, Boston was worried. Bird was 29, and his back was already a problem. Kevin McHale was 28. Robert Parrish was 32. The aging core needed an infusion. Red Auerbach, the architect of every Celtics dynasty since the 1950s, had pulled off a heist a year earlier. He traded Gerald Henderson to the Seattle Supersonics for a future first-round pick. That pick, in 1986, became the 2nd overall selection in the draft. The Cleveland Cavaliers took Brad Daugherty, number 1. The Celtics were on the clock. David Stern walked to the podium and announced the pick. With the 2nd pick in the 1986 NBA draft, the Boston Celtics select Len Bias from the University of Maryland. The Boston Garden erupted from 1,000 miles away. The dynasty had its next pillar. The kid in the green hat lifted the green jersey over his head. The kid who was going to be the next Larry Bird. 40 hours later, he was gone. The morning of June 19th, 1986. A college dorm room at the University of Maryland, Suite 1103. Bias had flown back to campus to celebrate with his teammates and friends. By every account, he was happy. He had just signed a sneaker contract with Reebok. He had just been drafted by the most storied franchise in basketball. He was 22 years old, and the entire rest of his life was a green and white parade. At 6:32 in the morning, his friend Brian Tribble dialed 911. The call is public. You can listen to it online. It is one of the most haunting recordings in American sports history. Tribble is screaming. The dispatcher is calm. The dispatcher does not know who is on the floor. Tribble keeps repeating, "This is Len Bias." Paramedics arrived. They tried to resuscitate him for almost an hour. He never came back. The cause of death was a cardiac arrhythmia triggered by cocaine intoxication. He had consumed the substance sometime in the early morning hours of the celebration. He had played 0 seconds of NBA basketball. What happened next changed the country. The death of Len Bias became the political fuel for the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986. Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill, a Massachusetts congressman who had watched Bias get drafted by his beloved Celtics, pushed the legislation through Congress in a matter of weeks. The law created mandatory minimum sentences for drug offenses. It created the now infamous 100-to-1 disparity between crack and powder cocaine. It is widely considered the foundational document of the modern American mass incarceration era. 2 generations of Americans, mostly black, mostly poor, went to prison under sentencing rules written in reaction to a single death in a college dorm room. On the basketball side, the Celtics were never the same. With Bias, the rotation would have included a 22-year-old elite forward developing behind Bird and McHale. Without him, Boston drafted his would-be replacement Reggie Lewis in 1987, who himself died of a heart condition 6 years later. The franchise did not win another championship until 2008, 22 years after the dynasty was supposed to continue. Larry Bird's back gave out in 1988. McHale's foot. Parish age. The bridge was supposed to be Bias. The bridge collapsed before it was built. In every basketball history book, every documentary, every long-form essay about the NBA in the 1990s, there was one paragraph that begins with the same 5 words. If Len Bias had lived, if Len Bias had lived, here is what we think might have happened. He joins Boston in October 1986. He is the 6th man behind Bird and McHale for 2 seasons, soaking up the championship culture, getting 20 minutes a night. By 1988, when Bird's back fails, Bias is 24 years old and ready. He slides into the starting small forward spot. The Celtics, instead of falling off a cliff, transition into a Bias-McHale Parish core. Bias makes his first All-Star team in 1989. The Eastern Conference, which became the Bad Boys Pistons running uncontested for 2 years, now has Boston standing in the way. The 89 and 90 finals look different. Bias and Magic Johnson is the new rivalry. The torch from Bird passes cleanly. Michael Jordan still wins championships. He is too good not to. But maybe not 6. Maybe not in a row. Maybe Bias takes one off him in 91 or 92. Because Bias was the rare player who could guard Jordan one-on-one and also score on him. The entire arc of the 1990s NBA, the franchise rises and falls, the dynasties we now consider settled history, all of it sits on the assumption that Len Bias was not in the league. Remove that assumption and the decade looks completely different. That is the weight of one cocaine dose in one dorm room on one morning in June. Lunis Bias, Len's mother, spent the next 40 years touring the country giving anti-drug talks. She turned the worst moment of her life into a mission. She has said that what she misses most is not the basketball player. She misses her son. If you stayed with us this far, we appreciate you. This is good basketball. We do the games that never got played and the questions that never got answered. Hit subscribe. We'll see you next week.